We are going to look at the new interface that was released last week for GeoSync GO Plus. It has quite a bit different look and feel, although the functionality is pretty much the same. Not a lot of changes in the way you use it, different look, and we want to update, use some on that, and kind of at least go over some of the changes that were in place. If you're a user and you're using this every day and you've got questions, then please contact tech support and let us know, and we'll dig in deeper on the use and functionality of GeoSync GO Plus, particularly with some of the new changes that are in place. Over the next few weeks, we're going to again, we'll dig in with some of these webinars to look at some of the other changes that are taking place, all of which I think are very positive changes to help improve workflows and improve your work. So again, our commitment is everyday technology for everyday work, and what drives the changes that we've made is really this commitment to try to make the technology work as well and efficiently as possible for you as you use this in your work. GeoSync GO Plus, really nothing's changed from where we've been. GeoSync GO Plus is our primary interface going forward. It's an app that will run on iOS, Android, or Windows devices. All that's really the same in terms of the overall functionality. What's really changed is the interface and the look. And this screenshot kind of gives you an idea of how GeoSync GO Plus now looks with the update. I think one of the immediate things that you will notice is that it's a much really cleaner and lighter look than it was before, and there are specific reasons for that. The changes that have been released are really driven by improvements to performance, and then also really looking at how well this functions on a device outside in the field in sunlight. So the lighter background changes that have been made have produced a much more better performance, and then also more usability, particularly outside in the sunlight. We'll look at those maybe a little bit more in depth in a minute. But here are the main updates and changes. We'll go through these and then just at least explore those briefly. The color and the font, which I just mentioned, those are all driven by a desire to provide better performance, refresh performance, and just response. And the changes with color and font have really, and the interface changes really improved performance, particularly on marginal devices. Everything should, for a given data set, we should see better refresh times and redraw times, as well as a little better usability, and certainly the font makes it much more readable out on a small device. So color and font is one of the changes that we made. That's the most obvious one. The identify window placement has changed, and how it functions has changed just a little bit. We'll look at that more specifically in a minute. Location settings are now in a different place. They're tied in with the identify window. So a lot of the changes under the hood have been related to integrating GeoSync GO Plus more efficiently with GNSS receivers, particularly the Trimble Navigation R1 and R2 receivers. But a lot of efforts have been made to try to make the location or the GPS part of this work as efficiently as possible. And I mentioned, I guess, navigation features at the bottom of the list is one of the items that we really wanted to focus in on, and we'll look at how that works. But trying to make this is a tool to help you navigate back to existing features as friendly as possible. Some menu options have been changed for capturing new points. So there's a recommended approach to capturing new points. So if you're adding new features, we'll look at that. Offline capability, that's a critical component, we think, for the mobile. GeoSync GO Plus is really designed to be an online application, so it drives a lot of its power from being that web component where we have access to the web, but occasionally we can't have access to the web. We need to be able to go offline, and what we'll look at today is really the beginning of that offline capability. I will say that the goal is to begin to be able to allow Plus to be functionally an app that would be able to work largely offline and be able to have quite a bit of information available. Our starting place is just that. It's a starting place, and we'll begin to move forward to be able to provide more offline capability. There's also a grid viewer for visible features, and again, this is sort of a starting place for our ability to provide a little more ability to report and search and find features. GPS marker changes, also enhancements there to make that a little bit more useful, and particularly for navigation purposes, but also for data capture. So let's drop out and actually look at the application as it stands now. So this is GeoSync GO Plus with the light color. It's still the same. We sign in with our username and password. I'm going to do that. And when it opens, it gives us a list of our projects that are assigned to this particular user. At any time, if we're signed in as an administrator, we can go back to our account and have access to the users, sources, the layers, the setup for our projects anytime we want. If we want to go back to our home screen, then we come to this option on the right side of the menu. Let me reduce this back a little bit. From here, we can go to our home screen and select the project that we want. Project will open, and we'll center in on the location that we have set up and configured for our project. The first thing, again, the color and font we can see have changed a little bit on the menus. These have changed some. You can open and close or hide the menu. Selecting on these will open up with these tabs, so you can get access to your layers, tile sets, and additional projects. I'm going to go ahead and close out this menu. The Identify window has changed, so this is our Identify window, and it's got some additional tools on it that have been that used to be in the menu item with the toolbar. So our Identify with the eye will provide the attributes. So if we select any feature on the screen, we'll see the attributes will show up in this window, and we can scroll through the attributes just as we did before. This menu this Identify window will stay open all the time until you decide that you want to close it. The arrow at the bottom will toggle that open or closed. Again, we can open or close this window. And if we're working and we select another feature, that will stay closed until you open it. That's the basic functionality, and it will stay on the bottom right side of your screen regardless of the size of the interface that you're working on. If we size this more to what a tablet would be, we'll still see that at the bottom, and we can just tap on it to open and close that particular window. Again, if we ID, it'll update that information for us. Another change is the location settings, location being our GPS settings. And the GPS settings can be found in this Identify window. It is this button that I've highlighted, which provides our geolocation settings. two options in here. One, we look at our settings option. There is a checkbox for GNSS. If this is checked, then GeoSync GO Plus is going to assume that you're trying to connect to an R1 or R2 Trimble receiver. If you want to use the internal GPS on your phone or device, then you do not want that checked. So if you check that, you're going to have to set a device, which would be a Bluetooth device. So if you're just using this with your internal GPS, you do not want that checked. You can use the back button to move back to the main setting, and then enable will turn on your GPS settings, your internal GPS, and it will center the screen to the current location. The information about what's going on with the GPS is going to be in this window and will update as you move or navigate. So you'll have your latitude for the basic information you're going to get from an internal GPS. You're going to get the latitude, longitude. You get an accuracy estimate from that device. In this case, we got an accuracy estimate of 100 meters. I'm using my desktop computer in the office, and that's fairly typical. If you're using your mobile phone outside in the open, it's probably going to be somewhere 3 to 4 meters is what that number is going to say, and it'll have a timestamp associated with it. One of the changes that we see with the GPS marker that's been put in place, and let me disable this. I'm going to re-enable again. You'll notice this is now 65 meters on the accuracy. The GPS position has a buffer around it that's based on the accuracy reading. So this outside circle will change and modify based on what the current accuracy reading is for your GPS. So if you were using your phone and you had a 3 to 4 meter, this outside circle would be much smaller, but it gives an indication of what the accuracy actually is as you move and navigate with GPS on, and it gives you a constant readout of the estimated accuracy. If you're using the GNSS receivers like the R1 or R2 and you're getting sub-meter, or you're trying to get sub-meter, then you can watch this setting in real time. You're going to know whether that's sub-meter or sub-foot or whatever accuracy it is that you're looking for. You're going to be able to see the real-time readout of that particular of what's going on with the current GPS accuracy. Let's just stay in this for just a minute. Let's look at some of the navigation capabilities that have been built in. So as an example, I'm using GPS and I wanted to navigate to this fire hydrant, or if that were a valve, then if I select that on the screen, then my GPS, I get an arrow or I get a line that connects those. It tells me the distance from where I am to that feature, and then it tells me what level of accuracy I'm getting with the GPS. That gives some really good information as you're trying to navigate and find existing assets or features. As you move, one of the strategies you certainly could have, particularly if you were getting about a sub-meter or 3 to 10 foot circle, as you're moving, when the point that you're moving to falls inside that circle, then that's about as good as you're gonna get. So it's going to be helpful in terms of being able to manage the different accuracies that you get with GPS as you try to do navigation. So that represents, those are kind of the updates for our the GPS. One other thing, you can move back and forth between, if you're using an R1 or an R2 device, Trimble R1 or R2, you can move back and forth between using those devices and your internal GPS just by toggling on and off the GNSS checkbox and then reconnecting. So let's look at changes related to data capture. So if we were doing from just an inspection perspective, how would we do that? So if I wanted to do an inspection, say a test on this particular fire hydrant, I can ID that fire hydrant. And then if I want to get to my forms, I use this menu button here for new collection. So typically, if you're doing this work in the field, you would want to go ahead and open this menu. This menu will stay open as you work. You select the feature, say a hydrant, hit the new collection, and it will open up your forms that you have available. Pick hydrant, fill out the form just like you did before. Save, and then that report has been captured and saved. You can move to the next fire hydrant and then do the same thing. And you'll notice this menu just stays open, which works very nicely on the phone. Select the feature, you just click on the new collection, and it's going to open up and let you grab a form. If you want to add media to that, then you can just use the Add Media option, and it'll open up your media for your camera to be able to take a picture and link that to the feature. If you want to set a new point, then you can click and hold on the screen, and it'll set a new point, and then you have these options on a new point to set to open your form. So let's say that's a new tree that you're picking up, and you can save that form. If you select on this again, you can do a new collection. You can collect another point there, or you can actually close that using the X and X out of that particular feature. So let's go back and turn our GPS on. This is one of the improvements that we think is that works very well for collecting new GPS points. If we turn on our GPS, then typically what would happen is if you're using your GPS, particularly if you have an R1 or R2 device and you're mapping, then you have the same menu in place. You have a new geo collection option, so whenever you're ready to take a point, you just click on that button. It sets the point at the current GPS location, and then captures the information. You save that, and then you can move on to the next point just using this new geo collection button. The menu stays open all the time and works quite well. You also have another option when the GPS is active to be able to center your location. If you tap on center location, it'll always bring your GPS back to the center of the screen. One of the other options that are in here is a grid view, and this works on visible features. So if we're working in this particular area and we wanted to maybe search through and look at the visible features, we could do a grid view and select, such as our hydrants, and that will pull up the hydrants. And at this point, it's only providing the label field for you to search through. That will be enhanced soon to provide more attributes, but for right now, it has the label field available. So if you select that feature, then it will have ID'd that feature on the screen. This is a little more useful if we look at this. Say I'm looking for all these addresses that are in view. If I come back and use my GPS addresses, this gives me a list of all the addresses that are currently in view. So I can come through if I were looking for a particular location, such as 140 Prosperous Place. I could select that, and then that address will be automatically selected, and the attributes would be available. The grid view is something that will continue to be enhanced and worked on to provide more functionality for the ability to open up feature information and search and find. What's important, though, for now is to know that the grid view is only working against visible features. So if you have addresses for the whole community, this grid is only going to open up the ones that are visible currently on the screen. That's how that works. It's not going to go out. So if we pull back to here and we see the visible, then and open those up, I'm going to have more points than I had just a minute before, but it's only going to work on those that are actually visible. And it will then automatically get to that location. And you'll notice that since I have GPS on, as soon as I select that feature, it goes ahead and tells me what at least the line of sight distance is and where I am in relation to that particular address that I selected. Let me. I'm just going to disable the GPS here for just a minute. We want to look at the offline capability, which is I think, a very important feature. So again, if I'm going to go out and I need to work in this particular area, and I've got marginal cell coverage, or maybe I'm working on a device that's just not got a really good processor on it, maybe it's taking a little bit of time to refresh. If I can get to this, if I can pull this up on the map, then I can go to my offline mode, which I get from this menu item, this option on the far right. Click offline mode, and once I do offline mode, then okay, it's offline. Yeah, it captures whatever information was visible and holds those features in memory. So let me do that again. I'm going to go back online, and now I'm connected. Let me get addresses in here. I'm going to go offline. There we go. I'm offline. So at this point, all the addresses that were in view, all the features in view, are now in memory. I don't have to have a cell connection at this point. I don't have to have any sort of web connection. You will notice that it does capture the background map, my street map, but only at the level that I was when I set the online. So it doesn't cache that out at different levels, but I can move back and forth and see my street view, and then I can come in and zoom. So I have access to that. All the map tips work. If I ID that feature, I'm going to get the identifier. I'm going to get the information associated with that. I think at this point what I get is the label. I get the information along with the label field, not all the attributes in the offline mode. But I can select these, and if I want to do any inspections, I still can use my same process here to do an inspection, a fire hydrant inspection, collect that data, save, move to the next fire hydrant, fill out the information that I need to fill out, save, move. Any information that I collect or any forms that I fill out while I am offline are saved, and then once I reconnect the device, I go back online from the offline mode, then it connects, and then within a minute or within a few minutes, those reports then will be updated and sent on to the cloud service for whatever I want to do with those. The offline mode is a really key feature. I think from a productivity perspective, if I'm working in an area, I can go offline, and then I can work, and certainly the performance on the device is much faster and easier. I'm not trying to redraw all that information from the cloud or the web service. I can set new points if I want to, map and create a new point, fill that out and save, map to another new point, and save, and then once I come back online, then those points will be processed and become new features on my map. Let's see, if I go to my layers, GPS hydrant. So we've kind of gone through the basic new features. Let's go back and kind of review those. The color and font have changed, and the purpose of those really were to make the application a little more lighter weight and improve visibility on the devices in the sun. Identify window has changed, so the placement and function of that we looked at. The location settings are now embedded in the identify window. We have improvements for GNSS receiver integration and some changes in the way we would capture information using the menu options. I'll go back to my application for just a minute. The other tools that are part of the identify window involves our media. So if we have any linked images, they're going to show up here in the identify window. Again, here's our geolocation settings. Our find tool is now, if you want to enter latitude and longitude, which you have to enter in decimal degrees at this point, this will actually find the location and zoom to it. And then our measure tool is available from here. So if you start and want to measure, and then that will add a marker on the screen and give you the information related to the measurement that you just took, and you can restart that and work your way back in, and it will put another marker on the screen and give you the statistics of what you've just measured. And that's a pretty good overview of the changes that have been made. Again, if you're using GeoSync GO Plus and you have specific questions, particularly if you need something in order to do your work, then please contact us, and we'll arrange a session to be able to go over that in more detail. We will continue to work and improve the application. The good news is that this interface is really it. For now, we don't expect any real major interface changes for quite some time with the application. This is where we wanted to get to, and I think we're very satisfied with the performance we're getting right now with the interface. Certainly, we'd like to have any feedback and input from you related to any new features that you might desire, or changes, or certainly anything that's not functioning the way you think it's intended to. Thanks for attending our webinar today.